right. Well, thank you everybody for having me here. Always excited uh, to come into the meetup. I think this comes back from uh, 2019, Duke. I think it was the first time I attended, and haven't been a regular, but I really, really enjoy this group, and just thankful to be here. So I hope everyone's having a good week, having a good month. I'm here to actually talk about the residential assisted living as a space. And a lot of this is really educational, but a lot of it is also a journey going into this asset class. And it's an exciting place to be when you really, really start to crunch, think, and understand where these opportunities and really where that need is. So this is a little bit about me. I'm actually a retired veteran from the Coast Guard. I've been able to do some amazing things, been able to serve the country, do the big picture items as far as what the US and the economy is really doing, right? And then it led me to a position where I was able to do some pretty neat things with oil and gas. Being able to really manage the assets, the asset being the people and also the oil rigs, right? So when you really start looking at that, you start having an understanding that you've got people, you've got a system, you've got an asset to manage, and you've got to get things going, just like in real estate and just like in any business. Up until really last year, I became a full-time investor. I think there was a pivot in time, really, where I started to really look at it. And I've got a company, Xenon Management Group. It's actually a corporation. We're focused on investments and single-family space, multifamily notes, and also private equity. And currently, I'm running an incubator. I'm in an incubator program with veterans under the Bunker Labs and WeWork's collaboration. And I'm able to really reach out to veteran entrepreneurs that are doing some really amazing things out there, especially in this economy. So I'm really, really loving that experience in itself. Okay. And with that, really, I mean, when I start looking at assisted living and everything else, it really just highlights the impact that you as an investor and as a person can make in society, right? Right. So this is really what my career looked like. I was out looking for the assets, the people. In my days in the Coast Guard, I did work for the State Department. Went out and did some pretty cool assets on the oil and gas, and then really transitioned into the small multifamily, and now moving into a better asset in the case of assisted living, right? It really started here. I actually had an epiphany about 3 years ago, and I was walking, and the sun was coming down. It was actually at the point where I said, where am I going to go? Where am I going to go to get back home? And I was trying to chase, what was out there. And I said, okay, well, I got to get the sunset. I got to figure out where I'm going to go. But then I had one of those moments where I said, the road ends, and the road actually ended here for me because I had to turn back. And I said, I've got to figure out a new way to where I need to go, right? And there were some really personal things that really changed the way I thought about, what is it that you want to really do with your time here, right? So that really led me into a pretty neat journey, and then still really moving towards that on a personal note as well. All right. So here it is. Everybody knows that the infamous ESBI. Just to really think about it, how many folks know where they actually are, right? Just to kind of understand, are you, really working for someone? Are you self-employed? What is money doing for you, right? I mean, are you really just in this aspect here? Really just in this aspect, are you able to go in and say, I take a good chunk of my time here. Am I really here? Because we know that there is no leverage here, right? As an employee, But honestly, that's 5% of the population, and you've got 95% here, right? When you're really looking at creating wealth. And then when we go in and say, okay, well, where are the investors? Well, this is really only 5% of the population, and they're creating some massive wealth, right? Whereas we have self-employed, and these are really good business stats that I get from the incubator, is 95% of the population is actually in self-employed. But again, all that wealth is gained right here, right? So really just understanding that gives you just a thought of where are you really in that position, right? All right, just like the man here. Just some thoughts on that. All right, so here's some facts, okay? If I gave you a blank of these, would you be able to guess what that really looks like? This is the reality, and this is where it comes in. All right, they say that 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65 every day. Every day. That's today. That's tomorrow. That's the next few days. And then you've got 4,000 people turning 85. Right? 90% of seniors will actually say, well, you know what? I'd rather stay home, which we see that as a trend. I see that within my family as well. And if you really work the numbers out, 7 out of 10 people will require long-term care. Right? So really aligning that to say, okay, what is really happening just in our society, and understanding where this market is really moving, because this is a really special market. Okay. Here are more stats that come in and say this is how the odds start to stack up when we really say where we are at 2020 and really focusing in the next 10, 20, 30 years, how that really moves. You're really just seeing what they call the silver tsunami, right? And I'd like to coin that through Jean Guarino, who is with the residential assisted living. They really talk about this, and that's where you have to really start looking at that pivot of, okay, what is really happening in our society as we speak, right? Now we've got about just under 30,000 beds, or I'm sorry, assisted living communities. We've got just about 1 million licensed beds. And when we really look at where the numbers are currently versus what we saw previously, we're gonna need a whole lot of beds, right? As well as facilities, right? Here it is, the stats coming in. And there's a lull here, right? So you'll see the lull where you've got the silent generations and then the boomers, 10,000 every day happening, every day. And then where I actually fall, I'm in Generation X, I'm in 1975. So there's that lull for a little bit. But as I'm watching ahead, just like the swell, you've got the millennials also creeping up at it, right? So really there's that timeline that you have to consider from that aspect of what is happening to our generation and really our demographics, right? Because that is a major driver just in everything that we do. All right, real estate. What's everybody doing in real estate, right? HDTV, everyone here in Texas is a wholesaler. I've got a whole bunch of them running around everywhere. I mean, texting me all sorts of deals. I'm good. Foreclosures, I think there's going to be a big wave. I actually, I'm doing notes right now, and that's a hot market because, they're having to sell that. They're selling notes right now, at a huge discount, and there's a huge wave coming here in the next few months, right? So really, when you look at real estate as a whole, you've got so much in its options. And if you find that opportunity, go after it, right? And really sink into it, do well, do very well. And hopefully you're able to do some amazing things ahead in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Okay. Now looking at the space of senior living, right? And really the asset class and where I'm and mainly focusing on when we say residential, it's really that sweet spot in the middle, right? That middle area is where you want to be in residential assisted living, because when you start looking at the nursing homes, that's medical care. My dad is actually in a nursing home, right? So this really hits spot to me and saying, okay, well, I know he needs, 24/7 care. He's got stuff on the physical side. And then I've got friends that are hanging out on independent living, right? They're giving themselves high fives. They're driving off in their cars. They're going shopping. They're doing their things socially distanced. And, that's their class of living. But in this space, it's really the assisted living in where we want to focus. Okay. Here's some definitions for assisted living, right? And this really comes out of textbook of what's happening. And when you start looking at skilled nursing, right, now you're going into the 24-hour round the clock. You're really looking at rehab, respite care when you're in and out. When you really start putting that in the magic of what you do in assisted living, residential assisted living, those really become very interesting when you start looking at the business side, where you can pay or actually you can charge double what you normally would, right? And because there are programs out there. Okay, and this is really what it looks like when you start breaking it down. Okay, again, that sweet spot where you want to be is assisted living, and then really delving into memory care, right? Because that's where there's also a huge need just in this space and in this class. All right, so this was actually from the PricewaterhouseCoopers House. This came out a few months ago, and it really speaks to the volume of what is out there, right? And when we really look at the class and the assets, you can see residential, and honestly, they look at it as senior housing. Senior housing being here, this was 2021 here. Oh, see here, let's get my pen here. 2021 was right there. And then obviously it took a dip right there only because of COVID, but you can see the trend that and really if you date it back, there's still going to be a huge need. It's just been put in the back burner because it's not anything immediate, right? I think the market here goes back to low-income apartments. You're looking at single-family residential. I mean, those are the things that now really drive the market. And then, certain areas, as you see, but when you look at the senior housing, it's still there. That opportunity is still there, right? Looking at inventory, this is just more of, really when you start looking at penetration rates of where you're going to be in the inventory, right? And then really just in the mid-market range, they're still estimating close to about 2.2, 2.3 million beds needed in 2029, right? So when you really start looking at this from scale, are you a large facility or are you a small facility, right? So those are really asset classes that you have to consider. Okay. Now, when we start, yes.
Before you go on, are you looking at the number of beds in the same way as market capacity and like they do for storage facilities?
So the beds being per person.
Right.
Right.
I didn't mean like square foot, more like you're doing a market analysis on how much demand there is versus how much supply there is in the market.
Correct. Yes. Yes. This is all coming from the institute. There are quite a few institutions out there that are looking and saying, how many beds, how many spaces, how many people are actually going to be needed to fill these positions, right? Because I can say in California, they've got a limit of saying, we can only do 6 beds per residential housing, right? Whereas here in Texas, they say you can go up to about, I think they say 15 to 20, right? So really it comes back to licensing, but when they look at it from a national average, it comes back to, okay, how many beds do we really need to fill based on the population? Awesome. All right. So we'll go right into this. All right. So when we really look at the RAL strategy, you've got to look at the residential assisted living as number one, the real estate. You got to look at the people. Then you've got to look at the funding and the money and really how that all ties in, right? So this is really a nice, simple structure of what it looks like when you start looking at the operation. All right, going into it, really we're as an investor, you can be owner operator, you can be the operator, because there are folks that just want to operate. I've actually ran into quite a few of them. They just said, I just want to be an operator. Then you can be the real estate and just say private money, or I can be just the person that buys the property and I get rents, right? And usually the way you want to set that up is you can always double the market rent, right? So if a place is renting, 5,000 a month in a location, you could charge 10,000 just as real estate, right? So really, there's some really neat advantages in there. And then for the operations and the people, again, that's where you have to have those systems, right, in place. Okay, so keys to success for an assisted living. Number one, you've got to hit the right location. Location is key, but you've also got to look at the demand and need, right? Your team, I mean, makes a huge difference. The folks that are really there caring. And honestly, this is an asset class where it's not for everybody. It just really isn't, right? If you go in and say, hey, I just want to make a bazillion dollars, great. But do you really care about your people and the people and the engine and the folks that make it run, right? And that's always a key driver. And I was talking to someone about that. They said that is the biggest challenge just in this space alone, hiring and getting good people. So that really takes someone that really cares and looks at it from just in different aspects. Your clients obviously being knowing that you've got folks that you're targeting. There's a demographic that you look at based on location need as well. And then the systems of getting paid, is it private care? Is it Medicare? Is it funded in what way? And then having those systems really align, really go back to saying, okay, now how successful are you? What really gives you that X factor in your operation in the business, right? So again, you can be the operator, you can be the owner, you can be the owner operator, or you could just be the guy that says, hey, I'm okay as an investor, right? And then this really now, when you start opening up the numbers, you start looking at it, where do you really want to be? In the academy, they talk about it from, this is the sweet spot you really want to try to hit, right? Per bed, per person. You want to stay within the 4,000 to 6,000, that's a level 3. You want to stay within the 6,000 to 8,000, that's a level 4, right? So once you really start honing in those demographics, you start really seeing the magic work in this, right? And the way it was explained to me is it's a single family home that's got an engine of a hospital, right? With it, hospitality, and then the folks that come in, because there are other things that you can actually start, sweetening up, and then you start moving into those different classes. All right. So in comparison, this is really what it looks like when you start understanding, the assisted living. And this is, again, it's a one-time transaction versus the, cash now, rental home, Airbnb, in that space. And then also when you start looking at that, owner operated assisted living cash flow of 10 to 15,000 a month, right? Now, when you start looking at this, you guys see that, right? This is really where it starts to now look at the projections of where it is. Right now, I'm currently on contract with an assisted living, and this is actually a long-term play for me, right? Because I know what the returns are going to look like. Also, the need, right? So there are really some neat things that start to happen when you go into the space. Okay. Now, when you start looking at the national averages, this is actually in a website. I can show this here in a bit. It's Genworth, actually, if you start looking at it, what the cost of care starts to look like, right? Oh, what happened here? Is it that? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Okay, now the average cost of care here, when you start looking at this, it starts to go in and say 2020 versus 2025, right? And really, when you start looking at the cost, it does nothing but increase with healthcare, right? And there's a projection right now that they say that by 2027, the healthcare system, just the payment system alone, is going to be about a $6 trillion industry annually. Right. So healthcare, when you start looking at the economics of this, this is how it really starts to weave into the process. All right, so all right, here it is, drum roll, top markets. Okay, when you start looking at the markets here, just because they pay more up there, right? Just in that cost of living, that area, right? And then really, I've seen this. I've seen this in my own eyes as I'm doing some underwriting. We were talking to someone right now a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying their mom was paying about $15,000 a month just to stay in assisted living in the DC area, right? So when you really look at the markets, again, it goes back to location, it goes back to the need, and it really goes back to, what is it that you're trying to accomplish just from an owner, operator, investor, just in that context, right? Here's a Texas average. Texas average comes in and says, hey, it's about 3750 on the average. Here's some markets that we kind of go over and say, yeah, that's what it is. And then when you really start looking at the market in itself, it actually goes in and this is what it starts to become, right? Again, let's go back to that national average, right? And then once you really start honing it in, you can actually go in and say, now where is this really starting to go and move, right? So there are really some cool key points to this. All right, so again, the strategy for me actually is to really go in and identify these markets, right? And number one, I've got 4 right now that I'm moving towards. So, and it's exciting because the change of ownership, the business, really working with the Chamber of Commerce, being an impact to society, right? Especially as an entrepreneur in these times. It's bold, but also when you look at the long term, it also serves a need, right? So when I really look at residential assisted living, I look at it with excitement. I look at it from that ESBI model, and you ask yourself, where are you right now, right? It's back to that path of what path do you choose to take, right? And really, that's where it goes. I'm just excited to be part of this economy, be part of doing something special. And then this really goes into other things that I'd like to venture into, because it just becomes a vehicle to do more good things. That really is. And honestly, as an investor, that gets me really, really excited every day, right? All right. And there's that strategy right there. Go for 2020. That's it. Or 2021. It started in 2020, but this is where what it's going to look like for me.
We closed on those last year. So we are currently working on another one that that we are shooting to close in March, so next month. Oh gosh, it's February already, my goodness. Valentine's is coming up, you guys, so just a quick reminder. I need that reminder was really for me, sorry. So we're gonna do a little bit of, I took a trip here recently last month to go do some due diligence down to El Paso. So of course, every property that we're looking to take on, we want to make sure that we're doing due diligence on it. We want to check out site condition. We want to do property evaluation. Some of you may or may not be aware. I know Lisa and Leah are. I do property inspections. So mainly do residential, but definitely do commercial as well. I've done it here locally, and I've done it for a couple of our properties now here in Texas. So I did take a trip down to El Paso recently to look at our latest project, and that's what we're going to see here. This is Green Desert, and so we've got some pictures here. So one of the things that's excited us about the El Paso market, and so like I said, some of you guys have been following along and seeing what we've been going on. I know a couple of you guys are investors in on our deals. Super bullish on El Paso. So one of the reasons is going to be staring at you right there in front. So you're going to see those big cranes going on in the middle of that field. That warehouse under construction is one of the latest Amazon fulfillment centers. And so this is a huge draw to this area, to El Paso, for one. You guys, I'm sure you're aware, of course, of all of the jobs and the people that are leaving California and leaving different states, coming to Texas. And this is one of the reasons. One of the reasons is land is abundant. There's no state income tax. And, you've got friendly spots like El Paso that want businesses to come and start doing some development there. So right there, that's the latest progress. Well, as of about a month ago, of the Amazon Fulfillment Center. So located from away from the Amazon Fulfillment Center is this property here, Green Desert. This is one of the huge draws for us to this particular property. It's literally about 4 or 5 minutes away, super, super close by. So here, pulling up to the property, you're going to see some of our, there's some areas of improvement here. So now this is a due diligence trip. So we're looking at kind of general condition of the property. Hey, kind of what's that initial feel when you get to the site. So they do have a current monument sign up. That's going to be that one. A little lame, nothing wrong with it necessarily condition wise, but I think we can definitely improve on that, and we're going to work to do that. So that's the current setup. I do like the flags, the flag post there, draw a little extra eyes. But from this shot, you can kind of see the surrounding area. That lower left-hand picture is going to be the surrounding neighborhood. So this is actually really key. So a lot of the buildings that we have. Oh, so this complex is 48 units. We had a question there. So so something important for apartment buildings is the surrounding area. So this one in particular is actually in a residential area. So you can see some of the housing around it. Actually a really nice street, a couple of streets here that are all neighboring the property. So you can see some of those tall pines off in the distance. It's a really nice street when you pull up. Gosh, now that Eric was talking about that residential assisted living, I'm like, man, this could be a residential assisted living complex. Lights went on, right? But this is the general condition of the property here. It's actually in really, really good condition. This is a 90s build, so a much more modern build overall. You can see there some really good shots of the roof and the AC units as well, the rooftop, the swamp coolers. So these ones are actually in really good condition. The overall condition of the property has been very well maintained. This is a low-income housing tax credit property, so they have extra money since they're not really a for-profit type of entity that currently runs it. They have extra money to be able to throw at general building maintenance. So they've actually kept up with the building really well. The roofs look great. They're near new. The exteriors they've painted, they maintained them. The flashing looked really good on the exterior of the property. We've had issues with that in some of our other properties. So it's kind of one of those things you start to kind of develop what to look for. The more you own properties and different age ranges, different conditions and whatnot, you start to know problem spots, problem areas. So the fact that this one's got a new roof is a really good condition, and the area surrounding it is actually really good. These are huge pluses. Next slide for me there, Duke. All right, so this does bring us to now, no property is perfect. So this is going to be one of the issues that we are tackling here at this particular property. So these are all shots that I took here while visiting on site. So one of the issues that we are going to be dealing with here, one of the solutions, a problem that will have to be solved, is we're getting a lot of heavy corrosion on supply lines, on shutoff valves. So you'll notice all of that kind of scale and that buildup on those supply lines. You'll see some smaller lines there. Those are disconnects for the swamp coolers. So the swamp coolers are evaporative coolers, so they actually require water to be maintained. They're basically pads, and they have a fan that runs on them, and it's absorbing the warm air. So they need a supply line to run water up to the rooftop coolers. So these ones in particular, the way that they mounted them, of course, they just tap the supply line. They're feeding the water heaters, but you can see all of the corrosion. You can see all of the buildup, all of the the sediment, the debris there. And these disconnects are just super prone to failure the way that they've kind of set them up. They do these to winterize the properties. Texas does get some winter weather. So of course, when it starts approaching the winter time, they want to avoid any issues with freezing. So they will actually disconnect these smaller lines to drain out any water that's in the line, so they don't freeze and you start busting pipes. Any of you guys that may be on the mainland, living up or spend any time in the north, you know that that's a potential problem. Wrapping pipes or disconnecting them, having that kind of frozen pipes, that kind of deal. So this is a problem that we're currently in the works of solving. Water softeners, really different things to bring a solution to lowering the mineral content that's coming in and causing issues here at the complex. All right, so so the upper picture there, just showing some of the tools that we use, to evaluate some of the properties. It's me using a thermal imaging camera, looking for breaks in like insulation. I think that shot I was taking of an interior vent for a heater. I was looking. I think I saw some water staining and some deterioration from some of the soffit, and I was doing a scan on it to see if there was any latent water or any moisture intrusion there. So these are some of the tools that we'll use to go out and whenever I'm inspecting property. Overall, the property looked really good. And I said that the roofs look great. The upper right-hand corner, you'll see kind of one of the few issues that I did see there at the property. So you have these sidewalls here that they were kind of poorly flashed. I mean, these are, have a stucco finish on them, and you can see some separation there at the peak where there is the potential for water to start, seeping in there. In between the sidewall and wherever that point where it actually meets the roof line there. So there are some areas of improvement to be made on the property. There you can see in the lower right hand corner, you'll see the drip edge flashing and the overhang that they installed. So all of this was near new. The roofs are in really good condition. Then we got a chance to look in some of the attic space as well, looking at the truss work, the structure for the roofs as well, making sure that there wasn't any damage to the structures. Termite damage or wood rot, maybe due to any prior water damage, and making sure that they actually do have insulation in the attic spaces. So the property as a whole was looking really good. We just we're identifying some areas that we're going to need some addressing and some improvement, just from a facility, just a condition standpoint. All right, so. This particular shot, so this is going to be one of the areas that we can improve on. So what we've done at some of our other complexes, we have in motion now, is converting, let's say, any unused space or anywhere where we can see the potential to be able to increase the operating income. Some of that is by converting, let's say, space that's not used to its highest and best use. So that could be leasing offices that we can convert into rentable units. So we're doing that currently at our La Puerta del Sol property and also the Carolina Village property. So here's another potential for that here. So they do currently have a club, kind of a clubhouse, infrequently used here at this property. This is probably a 20 by 25 foot, room that's already fitted out with a, it's got a full kitchen. You can kind of see in the left-hand picture, there's a picture of, the range is in kind of the right-hand side of the picture. It obviously has full plumbing set up. And then the right-hand side, you'll see, it's got a door. They've already got, furniture in there. And then, this is probably double the size in width. So plenty of room to be able to convert this into a multi-room unit. And you can see how infrequently it's used. They've got a brand new water heater sitting in the rear, or in the upper right hand corner there, and that's just waiting to go into one of the units. Again, that comes back to the issue that they're having with the sediment buildup, the corrosion, all that kind of stuff on the water heater tanks. I mean, the property itself, because they don't have any water softening or any of that kind of stuff, water treatment. Some of these tanks were maybe only 3 years old. I mean, these are tanks that should be lasting 8 to 12 years. They're installed in the inside. They're protected away from the elements, and they're corroded through. They're having to replace them so frequently. I mean, like I said, they're just keeping them. They're ready to go. They're in this clubhouse. So this would be an area. This would be an area that we would look to convert into a usable, rentable space. This whole building is a combination of the clubhouse, and then they also have a leasing office on the other side. So there's a potential for several units in this one building as well. All right, so here you got a shot of the interior of one of their units that was rent ready. They didn't have many available, so this one was good to go. And there you can kind of see just general condition. Again, we're looking, for different things whenever we're going into the property. How's the general condition of the units? And you can tell, okay, how are the tenants, the residents taking care of the units? Are they beating them up? How's the maintenance staff been in maintaining, the structure, maintaining the building and the units themselves? This one was ready to go. They had just done a make ready on this one. They were looking to lease this one. But the condition overall is really good. It's a 90s build, but overall, like I said, it had been very well maintained. So this one's good to go. You can also see there they have gas ranges, gas fired appliances. And so to those that may not know, here locally, I don't feel like it's as big of a difference, but on the mainland, especially in Texas, gas is really inexpensive. So if you can convert your appliances to gas fired versus electric, then you're helping to reduce overall cost. Now we try to get utilities back onto the to the residents, but if this is something you can easily see costs going up in terms of just general management whenever you've got to maintain those appliances for any given reason, right? These units go vacant, or you've got people that have leave stuff on. Hey, you can't leave a a gas range on. You're going to know about it, right? So so yeah, so it's just a quick picture of the general condition of the units themselves. Good shape though, really good condition. And just some other interior shots, good usable space. They still felt modern. This is not a property that's like, oh wow, I've got lime green, carpets and pink sinks and bathtubs and some things that really feel outdated. But yeah, these ones they're pretty clean. They're pretty ready to go. So this is another good shot of the interior. And then you have the Matterport tour there. So this is something we like to do. This is bringing technology, modern technology into what we do for marketing our units, especially important now during COVID. So this is a great way to be able to market your properties. Some people are still squeamish about coming out and touring properties. So utilizing software tools like this, and it doesn't have to be Matterport, but there's different softwares out there that are able to create virtual tours. We just happen to have the hardware, the cameras, and all that kind of stuff to be able to do this. So I will shoot these whenever I'm on site to be able to look at properties and evaluate them even after the fact. And this is something we also use in, like I said, our marketing when it comes time to get these units out to the public and get somebody into a unit. They can come in and it's just like